Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and a few more teams strengthen their case for the FCS playoffs, and a few more can as we kick off Week 12. Now let's take a look back at last week and hand out some Player of the Week honors. Our Offensive Player of the Week goes to Florida A&M's quarterback Ryan Stanley, who went 25 of 42 for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 22-21 victory over Morgan State. The Rattler freshman has done a solid job since taking over the starting job and gives head coach Alex Wood hope for the future, as his team is definitely building in the right direction. Defensive Player of the Week award goes to cornerback Mason Williams of Penn, who picked off Harvard twice at crucial points in the game, which halted potential scoring drives. The Quakers were able to win this ball game 27-14, and Williams played a huge role in making sure the Crimson stayed out of the end zone enough to preserve the victory. The Special Teams of the Week honors goes to the Northern Colorado Bears' entire special teams unit. They got great production out of every facet of their special teams. Hakeem Diggs had a big 41-yard kickoff return. Mikael Dubos' 31-yard punt return set up another score. Jamie Falloon connected on all 4 of his extra points and also averaged 34.6 yards per punt with a long of 42. Thanks to winning the third facet of the game, Northern Colorado was able to upset the Montana Grizzlies 28-25. We'll be back after this.
New York City, the media capital of the world. But in America, there is a world of media at our fingertips, from coast to coast. The broadcast media industry connects us in so many ways and remains on the cutting edge of providing us news and entertainment. Have you ever pictured yourself working in the media? Did you ever dream of working in TV or on the radio? Make your dreams come true today. Connecticut School of Broadcasting is the oldest and largest group of communication schools in the country. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll learn by doing with hands-on training straight from professional broadcasters. There is job placement assistance for graduates, day and evening courses available. Graduate and get into the job market in only 8 or 16 weeks. Don't waste another second daydreaming about what you want to do with your life. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO and start living your dream today.
Welcome to the Big Sky. I'm Anthony Crescenzo. As we go into the last week of the regular season, some teams like North Dakota, who won the conference, and Eastern Washington, who are number 3 overall, have already punched their ticket to the playoffs. And let me say I'd like to see that game go down in the postseason simply because it wasn't scheduled during the regular season. Other squads like Montana, Cal Poly, Weber State, Northern Arizona, Northern Colorado, and Southern Utah are still hopeful, even if on the fringe. There were upsets during Senior Day, which made the playoff picture more interesting. The Wildcats beat the Mustangs, the Bears outlasted the Grizz, which wasn't as big of an upset, and while the Fighting Hawks won against the Lumberjacks, it wasn't decisive, which could help NAU make a case to the NCAA. Really quick congratulations are in order for Eagles All-American wide receiver Cooper Kupp, who became the subdivision's all-time leader in receptions, yards, and touchdown receptions this past week in Eastern Washington's 48-17 victory over Idaho State. Here's how the conference looks right now. North Dakota has the conference locked at 8-0. Eastern Washington is 7-0, but can tie the Fighting Hawks with a win this weekend. Weber State sits at 5-2 and still shows up in the coaches' polls after their victory against Cal Poly. Mustangs, Northern Arizona, Northern Colorado, and Southern Utah are all locked in fourth place, in a tie for fourth place at 4-3. The Grizz at 3-4. Portland State and Sacramento State are 2-5. Montana State, Idaho State, and the Aggies are all 1-6. In this final week of the regular season, we will see the 116th Brawl of the Wild as the Grizzlies host Montana State. Montana is coming off their 5th consecutive road loss, returning with quarterback Chad Chalik, hope I said your name right, who will need to connect in the end zone this weekend. Most of the Grizzlies' points last week were off Tim Semenza's leg, which leads the league. 3 points at a time might not be ideal, but if it keeps you in the game or wins it for you, who wouldn't take that? Southern Utah at Northern Arizona for the Hinton Burdick Grand Canyon Trophy. Blake Kemp will have to find Emmanuel Butler and put up another 400-plus yards against that Thunderbirds defense led by Mitch Daly. Weber State visits Idaho State, and if the Wildcats want to join the playoff party, they will have to play like they did against Cal Poly. If Jadrian Clark can spread the ball around, they may be looking at a 6-2 season. Cal Poly hosts the Hats Off to Heroes game against Northern Colorado. These teams have identical records. The Mustangs are still in the top 25 after back-to-back losses. The Bears are on a 3-game win streak, which just stopped off with a win against Montana, another top 25 team. Look for early points scored during this game, simply because of what happened last week. Sacramento State at UC Davis for the Causeway Classic. That'll be a fun one. And Friday night, Eastern Washington goes to Portland State. Bew Baldwin and company are looking to go 8-0, which would give them a part of the Big Sky title, and via Sagarian, they would get the playoff berth. The Eagles want to win for their 9th league title and home field advantage leading into January in Frisco. Who's going to join them? You'll just have to watch to find out. For the Big Sky, I'm Anthony Crescenzo.
What's up, FCS fans? I'm Ray Ryan with your Ivy League report for the last week of the Ancient Eight season. Conference supremacy is on the line this Saturday, so let's take a look at who's still alive for the Ivy crown. As you can see, there's a 3-way tie at the top with Harvard, Princeton, and Penn all holding 5-1 league records. The Crimson and Tigers are both 7-2 overall, while the Quakers are 6-3. Brown sits alone in 4th place with a 3-3 conference mark and 4-5 record, while Cornell and Yale are tied in 5th place with 2-4 Ivy marks. The Big Red are 4-5 overall, and the Bulldogs are 2-7. And rounding out the leaderboard, we have Dartmouth and Columbia at 1-5 in the league. The Big Green hold a 4-5 season record, while the Lions come in at 2-7. Now, as we move on to this week's games, 3 of the 4 matchups will determine who gets a share of the Ivy League title. However, I'll start with Columbia visiting Brown for a 12:30 kickoff on Senior Day for the Bears. Both squads are out of Ivy contention, but I think Brown will be very motivated to try to attain a winning record in the Ivy and a 500 overall mark. That being said, the Lions did have their best offensive game of the season last week against Cornell, but they also gave up 42 points to the Big Red. So with Bears wideout Troy Doles looking to be finally healthy, I think he'll be the difference for Brown as they win a close one late. And the first game on Saturday with championship implications is Penn traveling to Cornell for a noon matchup on Fox College Sports. The Big Red got huge performances last week from running back Chris Walker and QB Dalton Banks, but Alec Torgerson and Justin Watson set quarterback wide receiver records for the Quakers. Louis Vecchio should continue to get pressure too, so I like Penn to win comfortably to take home the Trustees Cup and a share of back-to-back Ivy titles. And at Harvard Stadium, Yale will try to play spoiler against their rival Crimson in the 133rd edition of the game. That game will be seen at 12:30 on CNBC, and the Bulldogs did hold Princeton's top offensive attack to just 17 points through the first 3 quarters last week, but I still see Harvard controlling the clock with Viviano and Smith in the run game. The Crimson should pull away late to win their 10th straight against the Elis, and a share of their 4th consecutive league championship. And to wrap up the Ivy season, Princeton hosts Dartmouth for a 1:30 start at Powers Field. The Big Green can get to 500 on the year with a win, and wideout Hunter Hagdorn was impressive last Saturday against Brown. The Tigers' John Lovett should have more success on the ground, though, and he could break Keith Elias' school rushing touchdown record with 2 scores. I think Princeton pulls out a tight one for Coach Horace's first victory against Dartmouth and a 3-way share of the Ivy crown. Well, that'll do it for this week's Ivy League Report. I'm Ray Ryan, and I hope you enjoy the last week of Ivy games for the 2016 season.
For the Missouri Valley Football Conference, I'm Brian Sullivan. Let's start off with a quick recap of an exciting Week 11. In the South Dakota Showdown, the Jackrabbits beat the Coyotes 28-21 behind quarterback Tyron Christian's 2 rushing touchdowns, including the game winner. Youngstown State defeated Southern Illinois 21-14 as Penguin Nation running back Jody Webb ran for a career-high 167 yards, and their scary defense made 2 red zone stops in the final 3 minutes for their victory. They became the first team in Missouri Valley Football Conference history to complete a season with a perfect record at home. NDSU handled Indiana State 41-17 behind Darius Shepard's 84-yard punt return and quarterback Easton Stick's 2 early TDs. Illinois State ended their season by crushing Missouri State 37-0 as Redbirds dominated on offense as running back Jamal Towns and DeMarco Corbin each rushed for over 100 yards to keep their playoff chances alive. And finally, Northern Iowa knocked off ranked Western Illinois 30-23 behind quarterback Eli Dunn's 2 TDs. Now, with 1 week to go to the playoffs, let's take a look at Week 12. Let's start off by heading to Southern Illinois, where number 24 Western Illinois looks to bounce back after last week and keep their playoff chances alive as they take on the Salukis. The Leathernecks, with their potent offense, led by quarterback Sean McGuire's 2,577 yards and 17 TDs, running back Steve McShane's 8 touchdowns, and over 3,000 career yard receiver Lance Lenore should handle the Salukis' defense. Now, let's head to Missouri State, where number 14 Penguin Nation looks to tune up their smothering defense anchored by NFL-ready defensive end Derek Rivers as the playoffs approach as they take on the Bears. Youngstown State's defense, which came up with 2 red zone stops in the final minutes to seal the game last week, should have no problem bottling up Bears quarterback Brody Lambert and wide receiver Malik Earl and keeping not only their playoff but conference title hopes alive. Heading to South Dakota, where the Coyotes host number 4 NDSU, the Bisons are led by quarterback Easton Stick, who has 1,565 yards this season, and running back King Frazier, who returned last week from injury, should have a big game as they go against the Coyotes' defense, which gave up a season-high 415 rushing yards and 630 yards of total offense. If the Bison's defense can contain South Dakota's sensational dual-threat quarterback Chris Strevler, who has 20 passing TDs to go along with his 8 rushing touchdowns, the Bisons should have no problem clinching a share of the conference title for the 6th straight year. And finally, in the game of the week, number 8 South Dakota State travels to Northern Iowa. The Jackrabbits offense, led by potential Offensive Player of the Year quarterback Tyron Christian, who has 27 passing touchdowns to go along with his 5 rushing TDs, and receiving threats tight end Dallas Goedert's 10 touchdowns and NFL-ready wide receiver Jake Winicke's 14 TDs, managed to put up an astonishing 630 yards of total offense last week. They will not have such an easy time, however, as they have to face Northern Iowa's potential Defensive Player of the Year defensive end Carter Schultz, who has 16 sacks already this season and 34.5 in his career, and was named for the 2nd consecutive week the MVFC Defensive Player of the Week. If Jackrabbits quarterback Tyron Christian can't figure out a way to escape his pressure, the Panthers could potentially pull off an upset and keep their playoff chances alive. A win, however, for South Dakota State would clinch a share of the conference title and give them an automatic bid in the playoffs.
Hey FCS fans, I'm Luke Jackson with your look at what's going on this week in the Ohio Valley Conference. There's one really big game this week in the OVC, and it will decide who gets the league's automatic bid into the FCS playoffs. The UT Martin Skyhawks travel to Jacksonville, Alabama to take on the number 2 ranked Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Jacksonville State has all but secured a spot in the FCS playoffs, but UT Martin can earn a share of the league title and the automatic bid with a win. A Jacksonville State victory assures them of a bye in the first round, but may only mean one bid for the OVC. Now, UT Martin can still earn an at-large bid with a loss, but will have to prove to the committee they are worthy of selection. Now, the game should hinge on whether or not UT Martin's 23rd ranked run defense, led by back-to-back OVC Defensive Player of the Week Khalid Hagan, can stop or stall JSU's number 7 ranked run game. And even if the Skyhawks can do that, they'll have to find a way to move the ball on Jacksonville State's defense, which is first in the FCS, giving up only 246 yards per game. Now, last year was an offensive assault from both sides, as there was 1,052 yards of total offense in Jacksonville State's 48-41 win. This year's game figures to be a little bit more of a defensive struggle, but should be just as close. Looking at the rest of the standings, Murray State will travel to Cookeville, Tennessee to take on the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles in a game that will decide third place in the OVC. Kicker should be a big part of this game, as Tennessee Tech standout Nick Madonia hit a 57-yarder last week, and Murray State's Connor Mitchell leads the FCS with 1.8 field goals made per game. Tennessee State, which has battled injuries all season, blew any chance for an at-large bid last week with a tough 44-16 loss to Tennessee Tech. Now, freshman Stephen Niebald, a Jerry Rice Award finalist, will look to finish his season strong against Southeast Missouri and its freshman sensation, Christian Wilkerson, who ranks second nationally in yards per catch. Eastern Illinois and superstar running back Devin Church, the OVC leader in rushing, head to Richmond, Kentucky to take on the Eastern Kentucky Colonels and their stud sophomore defensive lineman Aaron Patrick, who is number 1 in OVC play with 6.5 sacks. That's going to do it for the week in the Ohio Valley Conference. We'll see you here next week when we'll finally be talking FCS playoffs.
For the FCS Kickoff on Football Gameplan, I'm Chris Fichtel. Lafayette lost to Colgate 38-17 on the road, and Bucknell defeated Georgetown 21-7 on the road. In the Ram Crusader Cup, Fordham beat Holy Cross at Yankee Stadium 54-14 in front of over 20,000 people. The Rams got 3 touchdowns from Kevin Anderson to go along with 4 touchdowns for Chase Edmonds, who reached that number for the second straight year in this matchup. After the game, I was able to ask a few questions in the press conference. Let's hear from star Fordham quarterback Kevin Anderson at the microphone.
It was very special to me. I had 40 of my closest family and friends come up from the game, and a lot of people in my life that are really close to me that have never seen me play in person. So it was huge for me, and I was super excited just to play in front of them and just let them see me play and all the hard work I've had. And when it comes to the plays, Coach Bryant tells you, he has us just tunnel vision. So it's like, I'm not worried about whatever the last play. I'm not worried about the next play. Focus on my play, my job, my assignment, getting our guys in the right position and trying to make a play.
Also, let's hear Holy Cross head coach Tom Gilmore on injured star quarterback Peter Pujols.
By the rules, he has the option of redshirting, and I can tell you he's put the paperwork in to do that. So he can come back next year for a medical redshirt.
Lehigh leads the conference at 5-0 with Fordham right behind them at 4-1. Colgate and Bucknell are each 3-2, while Holy Cross, Lafayette, and Georgetown are all under 500. In this week's action, the Bucknell Bison play host to Fordham at noon as the Rams try to make their final case for a spot in the playoffs. The Rams will probably need a few teams to lose to get in, but they've played a fantastic season under first-year head coach Andrew Briner. This game is an end-of-the-season tradition, with these teams facing off in November 10 years in a row. Bucknell is looking to pull the upset and beat Fordham for the first time since 2012, but the Bison are only 1-3 at home so far this year. My player to watch is running back Joey DeFloria, who just became the first Bucknell player to rush for 1,000 yards since quarterback Darius Wilson did it back in 2004. DeFloria is only 127 yards away from second place on the team's all-time rushing list, and he still has his senior season next year left to play. The number 19 Lehigh Mountain Hawks head to Lafayette to face the Leopards in the final week of the regular season. Believe it or not, this is the 152nd matchup in the series, including 120 consecutive years, which is college football's most played and longest continuous rivalry. With many experts in the preseason picking Fordham and Colgate to win the Patriot League, it has been incredible to watch how well this Mountain Hawks team has played all year, and they earned the trophy with a lot of hard work. My player to watch this week is Nick Shafniski. Last year he was named the MVP of this game, and I believe he will become the 9th man to win the award twice. Lafayette quarterback Drew Reed also won the award as a freshman, so if he leads the Leopards to an upset, he could win the award as well for a second time. The Colgate Raiders host the Georgetown Hoyas at 1 p.m. Colgate holds a commanding 12-1 series lead, including a current 4-game winning streak. A Raiders win would give them a chance at second-place tie, although their goal was most certainly the title this season. They will also be looking to impress on Senior Day and send the 21 seniors off with a big victory. It's not looking good for a Georgetown team still looking for their first conference win heading into the final game against a great team. My player to watch this week is Colgate defensive end Pat Afriyi, who leads the Patriot League in sacks and tackles for loss and is 4th in the whole nation in both categories as well. Don't be surprised, though, if quarterback Jake Melville wins the award over his teammate because he has been strong all season long. With the FCS Kickoff on Football Gameplan for the Patriot League, I'm Chris Victel.
Well, the FCS creates so many opportunities for young men. And it's, I think, and you look in our league, it's really the best. It's the best combination of winning football, but also outstanding student athletes. That's really the true model here. And a lot of the FCS programs feel the same way. And, we're blessed to be where we're at here at Lehigh, and everybody else in this league feels the same way. But the FCS, you'll see a lot of people that aren't coming necessarily to the NFL, but what they are is they're becoming leaders of industry, whatever they do when they graduate. And that's really the most important piece of going to college and playing college football, is to getting that degree. And our guys really excel in that response.
So that's a wrap for this week's episode here on the FCS Kickoff. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. And if you miss any one of our episodes and want to see it again, you can find it archived on the website, footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Also subscribe on iTunes to our FCS Opening Drive podcast.